Going into the 2022 T20 World Cup, there was major question marks over India's top orders form, which of course is a bit of a marked departure from recent times, because if you remember as far back as 2019, the major issue wasn't in the top three, it was what came after that, specifically the middle and lower middle order. However, in today's day and age, India's middle and lower middle order was very sorted, but generally speaking, at least among fans, there always was some worry about the top order, in fact specifically of these two players, Rohit Sharma and Rahul, for the very simple reason that whilst Kohli's lean patch actually stretched on for quite a while, he did actually manage to get out of it just before the World Cup, and then went on to prove that during the T20 World Cup's first match that run of form was no fluke. He has actually rediscovered his mojo. That was very evident from the fact that he managed to take India home to a victory that in truth was a match that they didn't have that much business to win, but through sheer force of will he managed to drag them home. That being said, that same match against Pakistan saw both of India's openers, skipper Rohit Sharma and of course vice captain Rahul, both ended up actually flattering to receive on the particular day, and so naturally there have been plenty of question marks over the form of both of these two men coming into the T20 World Cup. And besides of course just current form, there's always been this school of thought that and sometimes these batsmen tend to disappoint in certain knockout matches or in matches in World Cups, or perhaps more importantly don't quite score as many runs as they probably should, that they would score, say, in home conditions, that they don't score as many runs in, say, Sena countries or in overseas conditions where it would be a little tougher to bat than it is in Indian conditions, so you play it all the time. How valid are all of these assertions, and how valid are the concerns if you're looking at it from a statistical standpoint? Well, that's actually what we're here to break down with you. So let's, without further ado, take a quick look at how exactly it is that these players, both of them, have fared. We'll go over their, certain statistics of theirs one by one through the course of this video, and we'll figure out where exactly it is that these players, whether or not, at least from a statistical standpoint, there is cause for concern. First, let's start with Rohit Sharma. Now, if you look at Rohit's numbers in T20Is for the calendar year 2022, you'd notice that there's one thing that really stands out in terms of a place where he could improve, and that of course is his average. Now, 24.72 is not an average that a batsman as good and destructive as Rohit Sharma should be having. However, there is a very key reason as to why that's the case. Remember, under Rohit's tutelage this time around, the Indian team have been trying to embrace a more aggressive attacking template or an attacking mindset when it comes to their batting, and Rohit as skipper really has led by example when it comes to embodying that template. So he has often taken it upon himself to give India very quick starts and bat very aggressively in the power plays, sometimes admittedly to the detriment of his own form, because he's looked very good, he's gotten a quick fire 20, but then he'll just end up getting out because he's gone for one big shot too many. That is reflective in his average for the year, because again 24.72 is not a normal Rohit Sharma average, but look at that strike rate, 140.93. It's a marked improvement in that regard, and bear in mind Rohit was never essentially a slow player, but 140.93 in the year 2022 does reflect that he has looked to bat more aggressively, not even depending on whether or not the situation calls for it. Just in general, he's looked to be attacking from the off, and that is reflective in his numbers. So that is really the only area that for me at least has been a concern, and it's reflected in the stats, because everything else apart from that really it's fine, but that average is a little low. But of course, you know for a fact that Rohit's a quality player, and that he can actually, on a day when he's well set, he tends to score very big runs. That is exactly what we have gotten accustomed to when it comes to watching Rohit Sharma bat. It's the reason why he scored 3 double tons in ODI cricket, is because when he tends to bat long, he bats really long. So now we've looked at how it is that he's fared this year. What about historically? Say, first we'll look at how well he's fared in T20 World Cups in the past, and then we'll actually take a look at how it is that he's fared in Sena countries. So if you look at his T20 World Cup record, again, the numbers aren't too bad. And I've heard a lot of people say that, Rohit is someone who generally tends to underwhelm in World Cup matches. He doesn't really have a great record. But again, if you look at the numbers at play, it doesn't really read too badly. 34 matches, 851 runs at an average of exactly 37 and a strike rate of 130.72. A higher score, by the way, of 79 not out. So again, these are very, very good numbers when you're looking at, World Cups or knockout tournaments like this. These aren't terrible numbers by any stretch of the imagination. Neither is it a lack of impact, because you remember that Rohit, he's played a number of T20 World Cups, and in fact he made his debut during the 2007 World T20 which India won, and he actually made his debut there as a low middle order bat, not even as a top order batsman. He was mostly playing low down the order. He was not playing in his traditional position where he does play now. So in that sense, he's actually done all right, all things considered. So generally speaking, this perception or this idea that Rohit doesn't quite step up when, it's a necessary game or when it's a big game, I think it's a bit, it's unfounded. I think it comes from trying to criticize the player just because if you take a quick look at his numbers, they're not bad at all. Yes, you can argue and say that maybe his strike rate could have been better, or maybe the average could have been better, but again, these aren't terrible numbers. Neither do they speak to someone or speak of someone who's had an underwhelming time in T20I World Cups. But what about his record in Sena countries? Again, if you're looking at these numbers, the only place where he really tends to lack is average, and that is actually pretty reflective of how it is that he's been batting lately and how it is that he generally bats when it comes to situations or matches like these where, well, he tends to actually get quick runs, generally speaking, because again, strike rate touching 140, a higher score 100 not out, more than 700 runs in 30 matches. Again, the only thing that I think could be improved, and which I'm pretty sure you all would agree with me, is the average. 30.60 isn't the greatest average out there, but again, good strike rate, and when he does get set, he can get you big scores that in the exact way that the hitman always has. So in that regard, I don't think Rohit, whether you look at it from a current perspective or even a historical perspective, is struggling too much for form. Now let's get to KL Rahul, and I'm sure the comment section will be lit for this. But either way, if you're talking about KL Rahul into T20Is in this year, I think I've made a mistake here. So any which way, I think we'll have to correct these graphics because I have made a bit of a mistake here. Now the thing is that KL this year has only played 11 matches, so in that sense he hasn't actually played enough cricket when it comes to T20Is. That has unfortunately been a problem for him. You remember he spent a lot of time actually out on the sidelines in 2022, and that really is one of the reasons why he's not actually been able to get as much game time as is probably needed, and why his numbers generally look underwhelming. But if you look at his numbers in the T20 World Cup and even in Sena countries, neither of them actually paint they don't paint the picture of a player who's underwhelming again, because in T20 World Cups he's played only 6 matches, 198 runs at an average touching 40 and a strike rate in the late 140s. So again, that's not bad numbers at all in that regard. So again, and yes, I know there's a caveat here that, when it came to the big matches in the 2021 World Cup, he didn't really pull his socks up. Even here, unfortunately, if you look at it, the way he was dismissed against Pakistan, it was actually almost a mirror image of the way he was dismissed against Pakistan in the Asia Cup. And in fact, not only was it the same mode of dismissal, that was of course inside edging one from his bat onto the stumps, it was also the same bowler who was involved, because the same bowler who was actually involved in his dismissal in the Asia Cup was involved in this one too. It was Naseem Shah. So in that sense, obviously, there are levels of concern, but KL has shown that when he actually does tend to get going, he can actually get you big runs, and that is something that is undeniable. It's something that's reflective in the numbers. And if you look at his Sena numbers too, again, they don't read badly in the slightest. Again, he's played 14 odd matches in Sena countries. He scored over 400 runs. This is of course his T20I stats. Average above 40, strike rate above 140, highest score of 101 not out. So And you know for a fact, again, anyone who's watched this channel on a regular basis will note for a fact that I have sometimes criticized KL for probably not pulling his weight as much as he should have. The only reason I say that is because I know for a fact he's a very talented batsman. It's something that is reflective not just in his statistics, but also when you watch him bat. So there is an expectation that KL can do so much better than he is right now. But beyond that, if you look at his numbers, you can understand why it is that he's persisted with by the Indian cricket team management, because generally speaking his numbers are actually not bad at all. Underlying sense, and even looked at from a broader perspective, they look great. So there's nothing really wrong with that. But it does present a very contrasting tale of course, both of these men, because whereas on one hand you can say that Rohit, generally speaking, his numbers don't really look too bad when it comes to how he's been this year, KL unfortunately has missed out on a lot of game time. So I think that would be his major detriment, and generally speaking that is reflective in his statistics as well. He hasn't actually scored runs at the pace he would have liked, nor has his average been great, nor has he scored in volumes either. He did find a little bit of form towards, of course, the bilateral series, the later parts of the year where India were playing bilaterals against South Africa and Australia. He was batting more aggressively, was playing better, but again unfortunately missed out on silencing those doubters who say that he doesn't perform in big games by actually having a poor game against Pakistan. So to sum things up, yes, there are some worrying signs when it comes to the Indian batting or lineup, but it's probably not as massive a problem as it does seem. Again, both of the players in question are talented players, and at this point the best thing that you can do is stick with them and hope that things actually do end up falling in place when the time comes that you need them to deliver the most. Because whether or not you're looking at it from whatever perspective, whether you're a fan of one batsman, not a fan of one batsman, they're actually your best bet in terms of openers, because you don't really have that many options. So the best thing that you can do as team management is actually stick with these batsmen and hope for the best. Whether or not that's something that the team does actually remains to be seen, because you'd remember, again, there's a couple of matches. There's match against Netherlands coming up. They might choose to experiment a tad, but I think now it's the World Cup time. You should look to play your strongest 11 come what may, and that means not actually resting anyone, even if it's a match that you consider a quote-unquote easy match. But enough about me, how I feel in this. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and tap the bell icon so you know when we're going live or uploading a new video. Then you can go ahead and follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram as well. And last but not least, don't forget to download the AajTak app. Thank you all so much for joining us. I hope to see you all through the day, but for now, goodbye.